Olivia Thompson here. The evening my mother finally labeled me useless in front of everyone at the table erupted in laughter, as if she just shared the funniest quip of the night. We were gathered at a chic downtown bistro, with a long wooden table, immaculate white plates, candles, embodying the quintessential perfect family ambience. My brother had just concluded a tale about finalizing his inaugural transaction at his impressive new finance position when my mom leaned back, swirled her wine, and stated, "At least one of my children proved capable." The other, her gaze settled on me, slow and sharp. "Well, she's still finding her footing, you see." I tease that she's my resident professional freeloader. The collective amusement struck me more profoundly than her actual words. She wasn't the only one. My uncle let out a snort. My aunt covered her mouth. My brother smiled into his glass. A burning sensation crept up my throat. Yet externally, I reacted in a way no one anticipated. I offered a smile. "Oh, truly?" I inquired, my tone even, bordering on playful. My mother's eyes fluttered, taken aback by my response. I sensed her preparing another barbed remark, another jab, another supposedly lighthearted comment that would loop in my head at 3:00 a.m. as usual. However, on this occasion, I was not unprepared. My phone, tucked in my pocket, contained months of content my mother believed I'd discard. Evidence. Her statements, her humor, her true demeanor when unobserved. I shoved my chair backward, my napkin sliding from my lap to the carpet. "You know what?" I stated, my voice so level it startled even me. "Enjoy your meal." I rose, conscious of numerous gazes fixed on my retreating figure, and departed without further comment. The door clicked shut gently behind me, yet in my mind it resonated like a forceful bang. The following morning, by 8:30, my phone would be inundated with frantic voicemails from my mother. What occurred? Why would you do such a thing? But before I detail her words and my actions that escalated a mere family dinner into open conflict, please share in the comments your current time and location. I'm curious to see the reach of this narrative. Many assume major blow-ups occur spontaneously, but that's untrue. They accumulate, one tiny spark after another. For my part, the seeds were sown several months prior to that evening meal. Clad in my food truck t-shirt, I stood in my compact studio kitchen, gazing at a bank alert that effectively declared, "Good effort. Rent, vehicle insurance, ingredients." My existence felt like an endless list of expenditures with insufficient earnings. My phone chimed, its ringtone already stirring a familiar dread within me. Predictably, my mother began in her usual manner, signaling her intent to belittle me. "How's the little taco experiment progressing?" I activated the speakerphone, placed my device on the counter, and initiated recording via a distinct application I'd installed after a particularly harsh conversation. At the time, I wasn't sure why I kept these recordings. Perhaps I was simply weary of doubting my own memory regarding her precise statements. "It's not an experiment," I responded, feigning enthusiasm. "The truck actually performed quite well this week near the stadium. Game nights are—" "Olivia," she interrupted with a loud sigh. "You're nearly 30. Food trucks are for college students or those without direction. Your brother has a legitimate profession. You're merely floating." A complete waste of tuition, truly. I winced, not due to the words themselves, I'd endured worse, but because of her nonchalant delivery, as though they were undisputed truths, like a weather report. You can't keep pretending to be a chef and expect everyone else to clean up your messes. Sometimes, I question what I did incorrectly with you. The recording application steadily accumulated seconds, like a rhythmic pulse. Once the call concluded, I gazed at the file's designation, "Call Mom Tuesday." I ought to have erased it. Instead, I retitled it Receipt Number 1 and relocated it to a concealed directory. Subsequently, this became a routine. Each time she phoned, feigning concern, each time she jested about my financial state, my irresponsibility, my perceived uselessness, I would begin recording. Recording number 7, "You'll never succeed without me." Recording number 13, "You're dead weight." Recording number 23, "Perhaps you're simply inept at everything." At that juncture, vengeance was not my motive, it was about self-preservation. Proof that my perceptions weren't diluted. proof that her behavior towards me wasn't merely typical familial interaction. The concept of employing these recordings emerged at a subsequent time. The evening my brother received his promotion, my mother opted to host a celebratory gathering that, inexplicably, evolved into a public critique of me. She selected the restaurant, an establishment where attendants drew out chairs and the menu conspicuously lacked prices. "For my accomplished son," she had announced in the family group chat, including a photograph of him in a suit. I was absent from the image. From across the dining area, I observed her embracing long-unseen relatives, radiating smiles and the aura of a proud parent. As I approached, her gaze swept over my sneakers, my faded black jeans, and the lingering scent of grilled onions in my hair. "You just couldn't change," she hissed quietly. "This is an important evening. Try not to monopolize the attention." I bit my tongue so fiercely that I tasted blood. My fingers grazed my phone in my pocket, the small folder feeling like a charged weapon. I hadn't intended to deploy it, not precisely. But then the beverages flowed freely, and so did the anecdotes. Discussions centered on my brother's successes, my mother's self-sacrifice, and my eccentric choice to leave a corporate marketing position to pursue a food truck aspiration, a dream she consistently labeled as fleeting. "Often joke," she declared loudly to my aunt just prior to the main course arriving, "that should anything befall us, at least one child is capable of navigating life. The other one," she added, making a dismissive hand gesture, "well, every family is blessed with a free spirit." The table erupted in laughter. My aunt, astonishingly, applauded. A flush of anger ascended my back. My unoccupied hand slid into my pocket and accessed my concealed directory. 23 recordings confronted me. For the very first time, the notion didn't terrify me. It scrutinized me. Perhaps I was tired of being the sole person aware of her true nature. Perhaps it was time for everyone else to hear her authentic voice once the festivities ended and her facade dropped. As the dessert menus reached the table, a strategy began to crystallize. It wasn't perfectly refined, nor was it without potential messiness, but it possessed enough edge to inflict damage. After the server departed, I checked my phone for the restaurant's Bluetooth signal. It appeared instantly, unprotected. My thumb paused above the name, my pulse quickening. I wasn't prepared to initiate playback just yet, but for the first time, I understood that I possessed the capability. The transformation of that dinner into a confrontation wasn't triggered by my mother's insult. It was the subsequent moment when everyone laughed. That was the decisive shift. "Mom," I stated, maintaining my smile, "do you genuinely consider me useless?" Her eyes sparkled. She thrived on having an audience. "Sweetheart, it's merely a jest. We all recognize your creativity, just not your precise stability. It's fine. Every family requires a late bloomer." My uncle let out a snicker. Someone further down the table mumbled, more like a never bloomer, and a wave of mirth swept through the space. At that instant, something within me ceased pleading for comprehension and began to harden. I pressed my thumb against my phone, sensing the sleek surface, the inherent power it held. I had already established a connection to the restaurant's concealed speakers beneath the table, the tiny, connected symbol illuminating at the top of my screen. "Do you truly wish to proceed with this?" I murmured, addressing myself more than her. She rolled her eyes. "Oh, Olivia, cease your theatrics. It's not perpetually centered on you." For a change, she was mistaken. I inhaled deeply, a sensation akin to plummeting from a precipice. "All right," I stated. "In that case, let's dedicate this evening to honesty instead." I selected receipt number 13 and maximized the volume. Initially, only the soft clinking of cutlery and subtle background music emanated from the restaurant's audio system. Then the music abruptly stopped, and my mother's voice permeated the entire space. Not from her lips, but from every ceiling-mounted speaker. "You're dead weight, Olivia," the recording stated, her tone devoid of warmth. "I'm at a loss as to what I did wrong with you. Your brother is out there earning substantial money, while you're hawking tacos from a truck like some adolescent. It's mortifying. Sometimes I wish you'd just leave the city so I wouldn't have to account for you to others." The entire table became motionless. Heads jerked upwards. Guests' gazes darted from my mother to the ceiling, then to me, then back to my mother, her face drained of color. "Turn that off." She hissed, yet her recorded voice continued. "You're almost 30 now, you're simply worthless. No savings, no direction, no constancy. I cannot depend on you for anything." I allowed it to continue. Each word reverberated throughout the restaurant, spilling over to adjacent tables. I observed a couple at the adjacent table, mid-mouthful. The bartender froze, a tray suspended in hand. My brother's jaw tightened, his eyes widened. My aunt gazed as if encountering a specter. My mother sprang from her seat so abruptly that her napkin drifted to the floor. "This is being taken out of context." She choked, her voice strained. "Olivia, cease this at once." My hands trembled, but I pressed on. I closed that particular file and initiated another. Receipt number 7. "Honestly, if you weren't my daughter, I wouldn't employ you for any position," the speakers resonated. "You're excessively sensitive, overly gentle. You'd never endure a genuine career. Be thankful I still take your calls." A murmur of "oh my God" escaped someone at the distant end of the table. My grandmother, typically a picture of impartiality, raised a quivering hand to her mouth. "Jennifer," she whispered, uttering my mother's first name as if it were distasteful. The audio continued to divulge every secret my mother had assumed I would safeguard. The disdain, the revulsion, the manner in which she spoke of me when convinced no one else was listening. Every public jest she'd made now revealed a crude, unpleasant basis beneath it, reverberating across the gleaming wood and exposed brick like a full admission. "You're creating a spectacle," my mom hissed, lurching towards my position at the table. "You're destroying your brother's evening. You're shaming me." I locked my phone and placed it flat on the table. The audio ceased, leaving an echoing quiet in its wake. "No," I replied, standing up. My chair rasped against the floor, its sound excessively loud in the prevailing silence. "You caused this. I merely amplified the volume you've consistently used on me for everyone to hear." For the inaugural time in my existence, she lacked an immediate retort. Her mouth moved, but no words emerged. My brother's gaze shifted between us, his expression a tableau of internal struggle. The other diners seemed distantly removed. Gazes, hushed tones, disbelief. I retrieved my coat. "Enjoy your capable child," I stated, gesturing towards my brother. "He became precisely what you desired, but I am finished trying out for a part you always envisioned as the mere butt of a joke." I tossed my bag over my shoulder. "I'm no longer willing to be just useful enough for you to denigrate while still expecting me to answer your calls." Then I pivoted and walked away, neither hurrying nor offering an apology. With each stride, a metaphorical door sealed shut behind me. I did not glance back when I heard my name being uttered. I did not turn when my mother's voice fractured into a raw, desperate sound. The restaurant door opened. The chill night air struck my face, and I stepped directly into it as if it were rightfully mine. From somewhere behind me, the speakers powered down. However, the harm had been inflicted. I didn't venture far. I rationalized that I was merely walking to gather my thoughts, but in truth, I paused half a block away, around the corner where an alley bisected 2 buildings. From that vantage point, I could still discern the restaurant's front windows, where agitated silhouettes moved within. My hands tingled, as if unsure whether to tremble or give myself a celebratory bump. Briefly, a sense of culpability attempted to surface. This was meant to be my brother's evening. It was supposed to be a joyous occasion. I could almost hear my mother's voice. "You simply had to make it about yourself." Yet then I recalled her voice, branding me useless, dead weight, a failure. Not just once, but repeatedly, like a ceaseless drumbeat she never tired of. I remembered every Sunday dinner where my life served as the punchline. Every family group chat where my brother's advancement was headline news, while my food truck, my actual business, was relegated to a dismissive footnote. I retrieved my phone and accessed the family group chat. Messages were already surfacing. What was that? "Is this a practical joke, Jennifer? Is that genuinely you?" I scrolled to my mother's last message from that afternoon, a photo of her and my brother before the restaurant, captioned, "So proud of my successful son." No mention of her daughter, who had dedicated 3 days to preparing catering orders, just to be able to attend. A profound sense of cold clarity settled within me. I pressed the attach button and chose a shorter audio clip. Receipt number 4, in which she declared, "I inform people I only have one child when questioned. It's simpler than elaborating on you." I edited it to contain only that sentence, her voice sharp and incontrovertible. I appended a single line of text. "Since you appreciate humor, here's a joke you've never heard." My thumb paused for a fraction of a second, then I pressed send. The chat group erupted almost immediately. "Jennifer, what is this? There's no way you uttered that to your own offspring." I observed the small typing indicators beneath my mother's name emerge, vanish, then reappear. No text message materialized. Instead, my phone illuminated with an incoming call from her. I rejected it. My heart throbbed, but the apprehension had dissipated. In its stead was a tougher emotion, something that had been silently developing, overlooked for years. I wished for her to experience being cornered for a change. I desired for her to understand what it felt like to have every facet of her identity clash simultaneously, the persona she presented and the true self she concealed. I hadn't finished. Launching my notes application, I began typing with rapid fingers. If you've ever questioned what emotional abuse sounds like when disguised as humor and tough love, here is a collection. I inserted a private link to a folder I had assembled earlier that afternoon, after a particularly harsh call concerning my perceived waste of my 20s. All 23 recordings resided there, meticulously labeled and timestamped. I refrained from making it publicly accessible on the internet, but I did transmit it directly to a select few individuals who had witnessed my mother's acts most intimately: my grandmother, my father, my 2 aunts, and my brother. My father's name remained with the delivered status for an extended period. My grandmother's chat indicated seen almost instantly. Moments later, she initiated a call. I nearly didn't answer, then I did. "Olivia," she began, her voice quivering, is that truly your mother?" "Yes," I replied plainly. "That's how she addresses me when others aren't present." Silence lingered for a moment, then came her quiet admission, "I had no conception." I swallowed with difficulty. That's precisely it. No one was meant to know. I could faintly discern the clinking of dishes and scraping of chairs in the background. She was still at the restaurant. "I am going to speak with her," my grandmother declared, a sudden firmness entering her voice. "This is not how we engage with family, not under my roof, not associated with my name." For once, the burden of embarrassment was not mine to bear. "Do as you wish," I stated. "I'm heading home." I ended the call, summoned a rideshare, and settled into the back seat upon its arrival. The city lights blurred outside the window. Notifications incessantly vibrated against my palm. Missed calls, messages, a multitude of alerts. I flipped my phone face down on my thigh, allowing them to accumulate. This evening had been merely the initial strike. The true repercussions, I surmised, would not become apparent until the next morning, when carefully constructed reputations and public images began to clash with the reality I had finally unveiled. I got little sleep, but when my phone ultimately roused me completely, the digital display on the lock screen indicated precisely 8:30 a.m. 32 missed calls, 12 voicemails, family group chats still ablaze, and the name Mom now flickering across the screen. I allowed it to ring, then observed as a new voicemail icon materialized. My chest constricted, yet I pressed play. Her voice erupted in my ear, high-pitched and frantic. "What happened? Why would you commit such an act? Do you have any comprehension of what you've inflicted upon me?" She sounded less like an anxious mother and more like a CEO whose company shares had just plummeted. "Your grandmother is enraged. Your aunts are conspiring against me. Your father spent the night in the guest room. Do you believe this is just? Do you imagine yourself some sort of casualty? You sabotaged your brother's evening. You shamed me publicly. You—" The message abruptly ended. Then another commenced without intervention. "Olivia, answer the phone. Remove that link immediately. People are messaging me. Clients are sending texts, inquiring if it's authentic. Do you intend to demolish my career after all I've sacrificed for you, my career?" Ah, yes, her career. My mother was a real estate professional, one who relied heavily on referrals, extensive networking, and her personal brand. She delighted in informing others that she specialized in family homes. I always found that particular phrase difficult to stomach. I paused the voicemail and navigated to Instagram. Her profile, business casual photos, a professional headshot, a bio replete with heart and house emojis, was noticeably subdued. No new story updates appeared. I switched to Facebook. Beneath last night's pre-dinner photograph of my brother, comments were accumulating. Wow, didn't anticipate that audio. Is that truly your voice, Jennifer? This is incredibly disheartening. My stomach lurched, but not from dread. This feeling was distinct. It was the experience of finally observing someone exposed to the same unforgiving scrutiny they had consistently applied to me. A knock echoed at my door. I pulled on a hoodie and opened it to find Taylor, my best friend since junior high, holding 2 coffees and a paper bag emanating an exquisite aroma. "I presumed you weren't sleeping," she remarked, sweeping past me, "and I've just been following your family group chat like a gripping HBO series." I snorted involuntarily. That dire. "Oh, it's an entire saga," she replied, settling onto my sofa. "Your Aunt Susan just posted, 'I cannot believe you uttered such things, Jennifer.' And your grandmother practically vowed to disinherit her, using very polite, church lady phrasing." I sat across from her and at last took a sip of coffee. My hands still trembled, but the warmth offered some comfort. "Do you believe I overstepped?" I posed the question I had avoided since pressing send the previous night. Taylor didn't reply immediately. She unwrapped a breakfast sandwich, took a mouthful, chewed, then swallowed. "You didn't fabricate anything," she finally stated. "You didn't alter her statements to intensify their impact. You simply rendered them audible to the individuals who needed to hear them. If she feels mortified, that burden isn't yours." I exhaled gradually. "She claims I've ruined her career." Taylor shrugged. "Perhaps she shouldn't have constructed a brand image based on being family-focused while verbally lambasting her own child. Actions have consequences." I rested my head against the back of the couch. I wanted her to cease, to understand she couldn't continually label me useless and then anticipate my presence with a smile. "She desired you to be silent and accessible," Taylor gently corrected. "You opted for being vocal and absent. That's the source of her anger." My phone vibrated once more, this time with a message from my grandmother. "I informed your mother she will not be welcomed at Sunday dinner until she apologizes to you appropriately and publicly." I reread it, astonished. "She's genuinely supporting you?" Taylor inquired. "It appears so." Another text arrived before I could formulate a reply. This one was from my father. "We need to speak. I wasn't aware it was so severe." "I apologize for not noticing." I gazed at the screen, a fresh prick of guilt surfacing. "He's collateral damage," I murmured. "He allowed it to occur," Taylor countered. "Perhaps this is his wake-up call as well." I recalled my mother's voicemail once more, her voice panicked and enraged. "What transpired? Why would you instigate this?" The response was simultaneously straightforward and complex. I was exhausted from enduring in silence. Weary of convincing myself I was overly sensitive, fatigued by observing her perpetual performance of perfection. My mother publicly, even as she privately demeaned me. "I won't be removing the link," I stated softly. "Excellent," Taylor responded. "However, you realize she won't merely settle for voicemails. She'll insist on a meeting. She'll try to portray this as your aggression. She'll attempt to reverse the narrative. Are you prepared for that?" I briefly shut my eyes, then reopened them with a more resolute expression. "Should she wish to converse," I declared, "it must occur on neutral ground, and this time I will dictate the terms." That afternoon, a message arrived. "We need to talk. Coffee at 3, your choice of venue." Her allowing me to select the location was uncharacteristic, revealing just how unsettled she truly was. I selected a cafe located on the other side of town, a spot she'd never inadvertently stumble upon with clients or acquaintances. It was a venue featuring mismatched seating and independent music, utterly distinct from her meticulously curated existence. Upon my arrival, she was already seated, arms folded and sunglasses donned, despite being indoors, projecting an assertive posture as if entering a business negotiation. I settled into the seat opposite her, maintaining my silence. The quietude prolonged until she eventually removed her glasses, fixing me with an angry stare. "Your actions are inexcusable," she began, her tone hushed yet throbbing with fury. "You publicly disgraced me. You ambushed the whole family. You endangered my career. You brought shame upon yourself." I interjected, maintaining an even tone. I merely pressed play. Her eyes narrowed. "Don't get clever with me, Olivia. Do you imagine yourself a hero now by exposing your own mother? Do you grasp how utterly preposterous that sounds?" I suppressed the laughter that threatened to emerge. "You labeled me useless, a burden, a failure. You informed others you had only one offspring. You've engaged in this behavior for years. Yet I'm the one who's deranged." "Those were personal discussions," she retorted sharply. "Families utter things in the heat of the moment. You don't disseminate them like revenge porn." The choice of words made me recoil. Firstly, never equate my actions with something like that. Secondly, in the majority of those recordings, you weren't angry. You were composed, unconcerned. You genuinely intended every single word you spoke. She parted her lips, then closed them, then opened them once more. "I was merely attempting to motivate you," she maintained. "It was tough love. You've always been overly tender, excessively sensitive. Had I not prompted you, you would still be reciting at home, accomplishing nothing." "I operate a business," I stated pointedly. "A modest one, granted, but a legitimate enterprise. I cover my own rent. I spend 12-hour days working on my feet precisely, so I don't need to request funds from you. Do you consider that nothing?" "A food truck hardly constitutes a career," she sneered. "Your brother is forging a future. You're simply hawking tacos in a parking lot. I was just trying to make you confront reality." "No," I replied softly. "You were trying to ensure I never believed I could achieve success without your validation. There's a significant distinction." We held each other's gaze, the atmosphere between us tense and fragile. Finally, she reclined, once again crossing her arms. "All right," she conceded. "Let's assume I occasionally went too far. Nevertheless, you had no justification to use those recordings as a weapon against me. You will remove them. Today, you will contact everyone you shared them with and inform them you overstated things, that I was merely under pressure, that you misinterpreted, and you will offer an apology for portraying me as a monster." There it was, the imperative, the prescribed narrative she anticipated I would adhere to. My former self would have surrendered, apologized simply to alleviate the unease, erased all evidence, and persuaded myself I had overstated the situation. However, that past iteration of me had exited the restaurant and would not be returning. "No," I declared, simply that, a single word that resonated with the force of overturning furniture. Her jaw dropped. "Excuse me." "I am not removing anything," I reiterated. "You won't reinterpret this as me assaulting you. I didn't manipulate your words. I didn't fabricate anything. I simply declined to guard your secrets without cost." Her jaw tightened so intensely that I observed the muscles twitch. "Do you comprehend what this is inflicting upon me?" She spat. "Upon my business. People are canceling property viewings, Olivia. Is it your intention for me to forfeit my earnings? Do you aim to annihilate me?" I exhaled deliberately. "I have no desire to ruin you," I stated. "I want you to experience repercussions for the first time. You've been maintaining this flawless mother persona while privately dismantling me. That behavior ceases now." "So what?" she scoffed. "You intend to perpetually hold those recordings over my head, blackmail your own mother." "No," I repeated. "I am presenting you with an option." She emitted a scornful laugh. "Oh, this ought to be entertaining." I held her steady gaze. "Do you desire any prospect of those links remaining confined to family?" I inquired. "Do you even wish for the possibility of restoring a connection with me? If so, these are my conditions. First, you will dispatch a written apology to every individual in that group chat. You asterisk, not I, acknowledging your words and your conduct toward me. No, if I hurt you trivialities, a genuine apology. Her nostrils flared. Second, you cease employing me as a source of amusement. No more tales of your useless daughter at gatherings. No more indirect criticisms during meals. You will speak of me as a human being, or you will not speak of me whatsoever. You don't get to set the rules. Third, I stated, interrupting her for the first time in my existence. You will discontinue accepting financial assistance from Grandma for 1 year. You've been depending on her generosity while presenting yourself as the one supporting everyone. You cannot simultaneously play the victim and the recipient. You wish to discuss being productive, then rely on yourself for once. That comment struck home. She flinched as if I had physically assaulted her. How dare you involve my financial matters in this? She murmured. Grandma contacted me, I responded. She informed me how much she's been providing for you, how you persuaded her to assist with your business expenditures by claiming you had 2 children to support. You exploited me as a pretext to siphon money from her while simultaneously treating me abhorrently. Mind your tone, she retorted, her voice faltering. No, I reiterated, leaning back in my seat. You no longer have the right to demand my silence. These are my conditions: a sincere apology, an end to public degradation, and no more discreet financial aid from Grandma for 12 months. Fulfill these, and I will keep the recordings confined. Fail to comply, and I cannot guarantee their ultimate destination. For an extended period, she simply gazed at me, utterly astonished. Then tears began to flow, not gentle, sorrowful tears, but rather furious, self-indulgent ones. You are heartless, she gasped. I nurtured a merciless, unappreciative child. No, I responded, my voice weary yet composed. You raised a child who ultimately ceased mistaking your comfort for my well-being. I rose to my feet. You possess my contact information, I appended. Utilize it when you are prepared to acknowledge your actions, rather than exclusively focusing on how they reflect upon you. I departed before she could respond. On this occasion, I didn't linger nearby. I had no desire to listen to her distortions. The ramifications were already unfolding. In the subsequent weeks, my existence resembled a before and after photograph. Prior, every family gathering felt like a perilous zone, every phone conversation a potential trap. Every jibe felt empty as it burdened me. Afterward, silence. Initially, the stillness was almost unsettling. There were no daily recommendations from my mother regarding suitable employment opportunities. No messages reminding me of my perceived shortcomings. The family group chat, which had once served as a stage for my mother's theatrical portrayal of motherhood, adopted a different tenor. My grandmother began sending more direct messages to me, inquiring about my timetable, my food truck, and forwarding vintage recipes she believed my patrons would appreciate. My father, who had consistently remained a quiet observer in these family interactions, inquired if he could visit the truck one weekend. Upon his visit, he queued like any other customer, ordered 3 tacos and a quesadilla, and tipped as if attempting to compensate for years of passive observation. I ought to have intervened, he murmured as the gathering dispersed. I overheard fragments. I convinced myself you could manage, that she didn't genuinely intend it, that it was simply her nature. I offered him a soft drink, resting against the metallic workstation. You comprehend it now, I stated. That is what truly counts. It doesn't rectify what you endured, he responded. But I am present now, in whatever capacity you require. I did not pardon him at that instant, but I harbored a small degree of faith in him, and that proved sufficient. Regarding my mother, she initially maintained a resolute silence. No expression of regret, no recognition. I learned through family chatter that circumstances were deteriorating. Grandma had withdrawn financial aid, precisely as she had committed. If you cannot show regard for your own child, she had informed my mother, you are not permitted to conceal yourself behind mine. My mother's activity on social media lessened. There were fewer updates about open houses and more ambiguous statements concerning betrayal by loved ones. I disregarded them. Then, one evening, As I was securing the truck following an exhausting day, my phone vibrated with an incoming message from her. No introductory remarks, just a dense block of text. "I never imagined my own daughter would be the one to shatter me," it commenced. Hardly an auspicious start. I nearly stopped reading then, but I continued. "I dedicated my entire life to pushing you towards greater strength because I was terrified you would falter," she had penned. "I now perceive that what I termed pushing was, in fact, me systematically undermining you. I am unaware of any other way to be." My own mother treated me more harshly. I genuinely believed I was doing a better job. There it was, the archetypal invocation of generational trauma. In earlier times, such a statement would have disarmed me. This time, it did not. "None of this justifies what I uttered to you," she carried on. This particular line gave me pause. I listened to those recordings, the ones you forwarded to your grandmother. Upon hearing my own voice, I failed to recognize myself. Or perhaps I did, and that is the most distressing aspect. I have already forfeited 2 clients because of this. People gossip, they condemn. I despise that, but I despise even more the realization that you have been bearing this burden in solitude. This was the nearest she had ever gotten to articulating my lived experience. Nonetheless, the subsequent sentences caused my jaw to clench. "Please do not disseminate those files beyond the immediate family," she had written. "I implore you, I will issue the apology you requested. I will cease treating you as a punchline. I'll even instruct Grandma to temporarily discontinue aiding my business. Just refrain from utterly ruining me. I might be an inadequate mother, but I remain your mother." I fixated on that final statement for a considerable duration. Asterisk still your mother asterisk. As though mere biological connection mandated allegiance, regardless of the harm it entailed. My thumb hesitated above the keyboard. I could have assented immediately, disarmed myself, and hastened to safeguard her public perception once more. Alternatively, I could have refused and observed her life collapse, simply to demonstrate my capability. Instead, I chose neither course of action. "Forward the apology," I eventually typed. "A genuine one, not a mere act, and adhere to your commitments. I will not circulate the recordings elsewhere for the time being. However, grasp this, I did not break you. I merely ceased concealing your actions. Whatever befalls your standing is a consequence of your decisions, not my retribution." I pressed send and set my phone aside. The following morning, my grandmother relayed the apology my mother had shared within the family group. It was awkward and flawed, prefaced with phrases like, "I never intended," and "that wasn't my aim." Yet, embedded within it was the precise sentence I had awaited my whole existence. "I have regarded Olivia as inferior, and I was mistaken." Merely words, they did not obliterate anything. They did not undo years of harm, but they were visible to all, and that held significance. I did not respond. I did not unblock her on social media. I did not extend an invitation to her for my significant inaugural event 2 months subsequent, when a local culinary blogger boasting an immense audience showcased my truck in a video titled "From Family Disappointment to Food Truck Favorite." That day, the queue outside my service window extended down the entire street. My father appeared once more, accompanied by my grandmother on this occasion. Taylor operated the cash register, beaming as if she held proprietorship of the establishment. At one juncture, I observed my reflection in the truck's metallic exterior. Hair tied back, apron soiled, eyes fatigued yet radiant. Not worthless, not a burden. A person who had forged something from fragments, resentment, and affection, and who remained resilient when someone sought to persuade her that she was inconsequential. Later that evening, as I was completing my closing duties, a new message arrived from my mother. It was brief this time. "Watched the video. You appeared joyful. I'm pleased you're thriving." I gazed at it momentarily, then secured my phone and placed it on the counter. I did not reply. Perhaps someday I would be prepared to converse. Perhaps not. Regardless, I owed her no forgiveness merely because she had at last been compelled to confront her own reality. I cleaned the final surface, extinguished the lights, and emerged into the crisp night atmosphere. For the first time in a considerable while, my life felt genuinely my own. I was no longer the ineffectual daughter. I was the individual who compelled an entire family and one intensely image-conscious mother to confront reality and bear the repercussions. And I was only just beginning. The antagonist in this narrative, the mother, exemplifies a very tangible form of subtle cruelty, emotional mistreatment masked as humor, stringent upbringing, and elevated expectations. Her concern for appearance and authority outweighs her daughter's emotional well-being, until her own statements are finally brought to light. Although her conduct is detrimental and indefensible, her demise imparts a crucial lesson. Authority founded on degradation and apprehension will inevitably crumble when veracity is revealed. The beneficial conclusion is that we are not compelled to endure disrespect from anyone, including family members. By establishing limits and articulating our thoughts, we safeguard our self-esteem and foster more wholesome, forthright connections.